So, big announcement. Could you just tell me a little bit about what influenced you to decide to run for re-election?
Sure, Chris. For the last 20 months, I've been fighting to protect our foundational American values, free speech, democracy, and the rule of law. But I'm excited to get back into the office to keep fighting for every single family in Hillsborough County, for parents like me trying to make our neighborhoods as safe as possible for our children, and for victims, and for everybody here who lives in our great county.
All right. So, what are some of the biggest factors that influence you to run?
Well, the biggest factor is getting back to do the job that I had been elected to do twice, to continue the great success we had for my first 6 years in office. We made Hillsborough County the safest large county in the state of Florida. Crime went down over 30%. I told voters what I would do, and we ended up fulfilling that vision and making Hillsborough much safer and our system more effective. It was a simple case of promises made and promises kept.
All right, great. And can you talk a little bit about the conflicts between you and Governor DeSantis that led to your suspension from office and how you plan to address those conflicts if you're reelected?
Well, what led to my suspension from office is the governor breaking the law. And that's not my opinion, that's a fact. That's what 4 different federal judges have found, that it was a politically motivated suspension that violated my constitutional rights to free speech because I had spoken out in a way that displeased the governor, because I'd stood up for women's right to choose, because I'd stood up against discrimination against LGBTQ and transgender Americans. That was the reason for the suspension. But right now, my focus is not just on winning in courts, as we've already done, but on actually getting back to the office to continue the success of making Hillsborough safer.
All right, great. And zeroing in on a woman's right to choose, I saw that in your video announcement you sent out, you mentioned protecting a woman's right to choose. How do you intend to uphold abortion rights as state attorney, especially with the abortion ban and things like that happening?
I'm proudly and openly pro-choice. And I've talked about how I don't believe it's appropriate and that it makes our community safer to prosecute women and doctors and nurses for legitimate private medical decisions. But as state attorney, I'll do what I've always done as a prosecutor. I'll follow the law and I'll use my discretion based on the facts and circumstances of every case. Keep in mind, I've been fighting for our freedom for the past 20 months now. That's freedom of speech, freedom to vote for who you want to vote for, and the freedom to have an abortion where that's legal.
All right, great. And kind of zeroing in on that too, I know you signed pledges regarding the transgender healthcare ban and abortion rights. So that was a point of contention between you and DeSantis, correct? So how do you view those issues in context of your role as state attorney?
As state attorney, my first priority is the safety of the community. How do we make Hillsborough County safer? And we succeeded in that. It's about fighting for victims, and we succeeded in that. But it's also about speaking up on issues of public importance that affect the criminal justice system. And I've talked about the need for prevention, the need for rehabilitation. I've criticized laws that I thought don't help further the goals of the system, and I've supported laws that I thought did. And I'll continue doing that because I am a representative of the people of Hillsborough County, and it's important they hear my voice as one of leadership on these issues.
All right. And can you provide us a little update on the legal battle between you and DeSantis?
Sure. Well, the most recent change in the case is what led to my announcement that I'm running for re-election, because the federal court upheld the rule of law. The federal court affirmed that the suspension was illegal and that the courts have the power to reinstate me. And what that shows is that the governor can't just overthrow an election for whatever bogus reason he cooks up. It shows that I was doing my job in exactly the way I told voters I would. It shows that the governor is not above the law and that the will of the voters matters.
And would you put it past DeSantis to possibly just suspend you again?
I can't speculate on, what political stunts the governor may pull in the future. But after a court has said clearly that this was illegal, then, intentionally violating somebody's constitutional rights is a crime.
All right. And lastly, what do you believe sets you apart from your opponents that are also running for Hillsborough State Attorney?
Look, I was elected based on my vision and my values and reelected based on my success. The unelected, illegally appointed person who's occupying that office was put there because of her politics. So what distinguishes us is that I'm about serving this community, and she's about serving the elected official in Tallahassee that put her there.
All right. And lastly, is there anything else you'd like to add that you feel we didn't cover or that you feel may be important for listeners to know about your reelection?
No, Chris, I think you covered it.